Labdien, cienījamie!
Good afternoon, dear ladies and gentlemen, dear members of mass media. Welcome to the joint press conference following the meeting between Nicu Popescu, the European Integration and Foreign Affairs Minister of Moldova. We'll start with the statement of Latvian Foreign Minister, Mr. Rinkevic. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. We indeed just concluded a meeting with my Moldovan counterpart, Foreign Affairs and European Integration Minister, Mr. Popescu. And I am indeed pleased and delighted to welcome him to Riga. It took a while for us to arrange this visit, considering everything that has been happening around us, both with the Russian invasion of Ukraine and situation inside Moldova. Unfortunately, we managed to put this visit together only for today. However, during the meeting we discussed a number of key priorities. Of course, primarily we talked about the situation as it is evolving in our region. We know that Moldova is directly under the impact of the Russian aggression against Ukraine, both in terms of energy supply and security, both in terms of refugee inflow as well. And also we know that some rockets or their parts are falling on the territory of Moldova as a result of this military conflict, and we express our full support to Moldova, and we will continue to also exploit European Union and other international frameworks and formats in order to make sure that the energy supplies are stable for Moldova, and we are supporting Moldova in terms of dealing with the refugee flows. We of course also discussed about the development of regional situation. We discussed Transnistrian situation as well, and I also expressed the unwavering position of Latvia with regard to territorial integrity of Moldova, as well as expressed our unwavering support to Moldova in these rather challenging times. Secondly, I'm pleased to see Moldova being offered candidacy to the European Union. We also discussed the forthcoming European Commission report on candidate countries, on the need to focus on further support. We are providing our assistance in a number of areas, like strengthening rule of law at the constitutional court level and the state audit level, and other practical areas, whereas today we discussed in particular how to make sure Moldova complies with the EU integration criteria and continues to progress towards the membership of the EU. We also talked about the spring NB visit to Moldova, just like we did to Ukraine. So the Nordic Baltic countries would visit Moldova to talk about further support for the Moldova Euro integration, for it to be able to comply with the membership criteria as a candidate country. And we of course talked also about bilateral relations. I should say that COVID pandemic and last year's war slowed down our economic cooperation and political dialogue rather significantly. That's why we would like to intensify both intergovernmental committee meetings or the work today, as well as enhance the contacts between the business communities. Deputy Prime Minister for Digitalization of Moldova visited last year Latvia together with expert group to explore the possibility to deepen the ICT cooperation with Latvia. So there's a lot to work on, in fact, but we mostly, of course, talked about the regional situation and exchange our views on the situation in the region. And one of the key issues that we discussed was, of course, practical support to Moldova as a candidate country for EU membership. Thank you. Now the floor is given to the Moldovan Foreign Minister. Please, the floor is yours.
Dear Minister, dear Edgars, it's a great pleasure, and I'm delighted to be starting my new year with this visit back to Riga to build on our excellent bilateral cooperation that is useful, I think, to our countries, but also on a wider scale for the region and for Europe as a whole. Today, we reconfirmed our shared vision of Moldova's future as an EU member state, and we looked for the best ways for Latvia and Moldova to cooperate in turning that prospect into a reality as soon as possible, and that would be something that would make Europe stronger. As we speak, Moldova is taking decisive steps towards EU membership. We are reforming our justice system, stepping up the fight against corruption, strengthening our democracy, boosting the administrative capacity to deliver on reforms, modernizing our economy. And we are doing that with the support of our partners, including Latvia, and to a large degree we are on that track of replicating what Latvia did around 20 years ago. Just in the past year, Moldova has managed to achieve significant progress. We became an EU candidate country last summer, along with Ukraine. We've been declared a democratic bright spot by the Global State of Democracy report. Our anti-money laundering ratings have been upgraded by the Council of Europe. We jumped 49 ranks in the Reporters Without Borders Press Freedom Index, and we have done many, many other things which are recognized internationally as a progress towards our consolidation of a country that is free, democratic, and European. As Edgar said, we discussed quite a lot about regional security. We are united in our condemnation of Russia's brutal aggression against Ukraine. We stand firmly with Ukraine as our two countries. We in Moldova, of course, are severely impacted by that war. We are hosting, and we have hosted a lot of refugees. Some 3% of our population today are refugees from Ukraine. We've had some 600,000 people from Ukraine crossing or staying in Moldova in the last 10 months, fleeing from bombs and Russia's brutality. We've been working with Ukraine, of course, to host the refugees, to ensure a dignified presence, to provide solidarity lanes, to send humanitarian assistance to Ukraine, but also we've been doing our best to contribute to international efforts, to contribute to regional stability and alleviate the negative impact of the war on all of us. Given our geography, as I said, we've been very affected negatively by this war. We have several instances of Russian missiles crossing our territory, violating our airspace. Some debris fell on our territory, and that shows you how Russia's bombing of Ukraine affects a country like Moldova in a very direct and completely unacceptable and revolting way. With the Russian bombing of the Ukrainian civilian energy infrastructure in Ukraine, Moldova has also been directly affected. We've had instances of blackouts, some of them pretty severe, and again, we are strongly condemning Russia's brutal aggression and its total disregard of international law, but also civilian lives. Moldova, because of the war, Moldova faces a very difficult situation. We have an inflation that is 35%. The impact of energy prices on the economy is quite dramatic, and we are doing our best to go through this difficult period in the history of our region. But we do so with the strong support of our partners, of Latvia, of the European Union, of the United States, Canada, Japan, and everyone is really doing their best to help Moldova go through this difficult period. And we've been able, despite this difficult context, to build our resilience and to prepare our country for facing the type of threats that we have to deal with. This winter is actually the first winter in Moldova's history where we went into this winter with significant gas reserves that we saved in summer to ensure that we have a degree of energy resilience. Around a year ago, basically in February last year, together with Ukraine, we've connected to the European electricity grid through the ENTSO-E system, and in this sense we have been quite successful in taking some steps in improving our energy resilience, but of course we have quite a long way to go before we can talk of systematic energy security, but we're making progress in that direction. We're talking about, with our partners, about security and defense cooperation, about economic development, and I described the negative effects of the war, but we've done our best to make sure that our country is as unaffected as possible given the circumstances. So we've really worked hard to diversify our export routes, our logistical chains, and we've managed to actually last year export more than we exported in 2021, which is testimony to the resilience of our society and our economy, even in the face of this brutal regional destabilization. Well, we've also discussed about bilateral relations, and we have excellent cooperation with Latvia. And technically, we have 30 years of diplomatic relations that we had last autumn. But de facto, our excellent cooperation goes back to pre-independence days, and I think the last years of the Soviet Union, Moldova and Latvia have been cooperating and coordinating quite well in our desire to see our societies break free from the Soviet Union. So to a degree, I think our excellent cooperation predates our independence, and I myself have been to Riga in 1987. In this period, Moldova has truly benefited from great support from Latvia that took both practical and political and diplomatic support. Latvia has always supported our European aspiration, but when it comes to concrete projects, Latvia has financed some 90 or supported some 90 projects to help Moldova develop, to implement reforms, to overhaul our financial sector, health system, media literacy, being just some of the concrete ways in which Latvia has supported Moldova's democracy and Europeanness. We also want to look into ways to improve and expand on our trade relationship. We have stable trade relations, but we want to boost them and increase them. So we discussed about organizing this year a joint economic cooperation commission and the Moldovan Latvian Business Council, so that we give the right platforms for our business communities to look into new opportunities, new contracts that help our economies grow. We also expressed an interest, and some of them we're discussing in very concrete details, in strengthening the legal basis and foundations of our relationship and working together towards a social security protection agreement and an agreement that Moldova is very interested on the mutual recognition of driving licenses. One other topic that we covered is the fact that Moldova will organize the next summit of the European Political Community in Chisinau in the first days of summer, and this is an initiative that we are looking forward to consulting with partners as to how we can make it as concrete as possible for the participating countries, so that we all start getting concrete results from these diplomatic interactions. Having said this, I would like to thank you, Edgars, for all of your personal support to Moldova, but also the support of Latvia, the government, the Latvian society, for our path, Moldova's path to the consolidation of democracy, freedom, and our path towards the European Union. Thank you.
Thank you. This concludes the press conference. Thank you all.